books that are prescribed readings in a coursework rarely have a lasting impression because you read them for a particular seminar, for a particular essay, and then you move on. But a few of these books which are prescribed by your faculty leave a lasting impression on you. And Seeing Like a State and Weapons of the Weak by James Scott come in this category. This reflection came to me because very recently, that is on the 19th of July, James Scott passed on after a distinguished career as an academician, as the doyen of agrarian studies, as a fearless thinker, as somebody whose heart was in the right place. And he really did leave a strong, indelible impression on the minds of many of us who were studying governance and who were participating in government matters, in policy issues, especially concerning rural development, agriculture, and allied sectors. Friends, my introduction to James Scott goes back to the year 1999. I was a Hubert Humphrey Fellow at the Cornell University, and I took a course on political ecology. Now, when I took up this course on political ecology, my professor Ronald J. Herring, who's done a lot of scholarly work on India, especially in Kerala, he asked me to read this book and comment on it or sort of discuss it in the next class that we have with the cohort. And this was an international cohort. We had participants from across the world, and there were students who were from economics, from agriculture, from life sciences, from philosophy, from marketing, from management. So it was a very interesting cohort of about 30 of us who were doing this particular course in political ecology. And he in a very exaggerated sense, he said that, look, Sanjeev, you are part of the state in India. So I want you to I want you to see whether his seeing as a state is the way you look at the state in India. It's a formidable challenge, but I read up James Scott, this particular book, and also a book which had been written about 8 years ago that was called Weapons of the Weak. Now, reading these two books together gave me a sense of perspective, gave me a sense of how James Scott has looked at the state. Now, James Scott was wanted to be an economist, was trained as a political scientist, went off to Burma and to Malaysia to spend time in the villages, thereby becoming an anthropologist, came back and started taking courses on agrarian studies. And he really looked into the economy of a village in Malaysia. And he sort of came to some very interesting conclusions. The first, he said that when peasants and those on the other end of the spectrum, when they don't like what the state is doing to them, they don't suddenly start revolting. They don't want to confront the state. They want to circumvent the state. That is, they find ways and means to bypass what the state wants them to do. That was point number one. The second point that he made was that whenever very large schemes are announced by planners, by thinkers, or by political leaders based on a certain ideological prescription that they have in mind. For example, the entire Marxist theory was based on the feeling that, individual farms will not help. You need to collectivize the farms, collectivization. There's something which Stalin tried, something which Mao tried, something which was tried in Tanzania but failed because it was not rooted on the ground. It was based on a grand theory which was ideological. He also pointed out about many of the very large river water projects that we have. He talked about monoculture in forestry in Europe, which is today responsible for a lot of forest fires over there. About many things, about the way the British wanted us to change our agricultural patterns by growing indigo and jute and tea instead of normal crops. So these were all issues which were driven by the state. And by the state, he means those who control the state. This was a very important factor. The third thing which he said was that, when the civil society is weak and when the judiciary is not strong, then it is not very easy for farmers or peasants or workers to protest, but they will find ways of expressing themselves. This could be in the nature of a slander. It could be in the nature of an exaggerated praise. It could be by simply delaying what they have been asked to do. They could march out. They could, do many other things. They would not. They can circumvent. That is, they would not get into open confrontation, but they would circumvent the system. Now, this is a very important observation, and I felt that, and I wanted to apply it to our Indian conditions, because he also made the point that, there are two kinds of knowledge. There is the epistemological logic, which is based on formal reading, and then there is something called mythos, which is the knowledge which people have, the folk wisdom, right? So, can these ever work together, or are they always at contradiction, or they always contradictory to each other? Now, that set me thinking about Purulia district where I was first posted. And I remember the date exactly, 3rd June 1986. When I joined Purulia district as a probationer, I was quite appalled by the poverty there, because I had come from Punjab and Delhi and I had not seen such levels of poverty. But what I also saw was there was a, that there was a very positive move to transform the society in Purulia. And here I found that almost every agency was involved with this. I mean, we had a very strong Panchayati Raj there. The Agriculture Department, the Krishi Vigyan Kendra, which was run by the Government of India, the Krishi Vigyan Kendra, the Ramakrishna Mission, which was only grudgingly accepted by the left front regime, and the Zilla Panchayat, which was controlled by the left front, the IAS and the other officers who, appeared to be an implant from the Government of India. But we all worked together, and because there was democratic elections every 5 years, and because fierce electoral contests were taking place in Purulia as in other parts of the country, therefore the Indian state could not really impose its dictum, in the sense that there was a lot of participation from the ground. And this ground level participation made things a lot different. For instance, no one had thought of the potato crop in Purulia. But the farmers said that they would like potato crop. I mean, we were thinking of pulses, but they found that potato makes more sense. And therefore, the agriculture department decided to provide potato seeds. So rather than Purulia being an example where only what the government wanted was being enforced, a lot of information was being collected from the ground, and it was a wonderful experiment. I wouldn't say experiment; it's something which has actually happened. And Purulia, like the other neighboring districts and even the neighboring districts of Odisha, we've had a phenomenal transformation of this place. So what I shared with my group, because I'd just come to Cornell after having finished my years as a district magistrate in West Bengal. So I said that, look, what Scott said in the context of Malaysia is not really valid in the Indian context, because we have a three-tier democracy. Each tier has a very strong and a very fierce contest. And in this contest, a lot of things emerge, a lot of consensus emerges. And it is not that political parties are always fighting. When it comes to development, there's a fair amount of bipartisan consensus among the parties. So this is what I shared with my group over there, and just a few days ago, in fact, after he died, after Jim Scott died, I was reflecting again on the statement that I'd said at that point of time, that we cannot universalize the experience of James Scott. That set me thinking on whether I can universalize my experience of Purulia district, and I've realized that that's also not true. Because the fact is that while there has been good agricultural transformation in Purulia and in several parts of West Bengal and Odisha, the fact is that there's an exodus of farmers in Uttarakhand, because conventional farming is not making sense, because we've not done land consolidation, and because the opportunities outside of agriculture are far better than opportunities in agriculture. And therefore, the conventional model that we thought, that if farmers had land and if you give all the resources, farmers like to continue their farming, that doesn't hold good, because there's much more money to be made outside of agriculture, and conventional farming is no longer very productive. And then when I look at the example of Punjab, where I find that, the Green Revolution was very successful, but what has it led to? It has led to a trail of cancer deaths. It's led to carcinogenic substances. It's led to the groundwater going down to about 400 feet. And what is Punjab doing? What is the political economy of Punjab doing? The political economy of Punjab still insists on giving free power, which adds to the financial burden, to draw more water, which adds to the ecological distress. And mind you, the state has a deficit of 3.45 lakh crore rupees. So I feel very humbled. I feel very humbled as I pay my tribute to James Scott, because I think that all of us need to realize that hubris leads us nowhere. We got to keep our ear to the ground. We got to adjust our policies by listening, by seeing, by observing, and by participating and communicating in dialogues. That's what I like best about James Scott, because whether you agree with him or you disagree with him, he taught us to ask the right questions. And asking the right questions is the foundation of better understanding of better systems. Thank you.